So I'm Kenesha Berry. I'm a relationship life coach. The relationship I help my clients with is the one they're having with themselves. And so tonight I'm going to talk a little bit about that and what I have kind of gleaned from the journey of the 21-day relationship journey from people's thoughts and notes that they share with me. And so tonight, again, like I said, what we're going to talk about is things that hinder our communications and relationships. So instead of like 5 ways to communicate more effectively, I want you to think about what is stopping you from communicating maybe at the level that you want to, or maybe be conscious of what perhaps may be stopping other people from communicating at the level they should. So that's why I said don't take things personally, because what we bring into relationships oftentimes is our hurt, pain, and disappointment, and then we attach to people from a very unhealthy way. So here we go. So number one of the things that I've noticed and that I really hear often in this relationship journey, and I realize this is affecting the way we communicate so much, is assumptions. So we make these assumptions about people. So I'm trying to make sure. Can someone type hello if you're on? I don't even know if anyone is on. I just want to make sure this is not one of those nights where people are leaving messages and I can't see them, because that does happen sometimes for me. So much. Yeah. All right. So I can tell it's there. All right. So yeah. So what I've learned on this 21-day relationship journey is that, and I know this to be true for myself too, is many times we are not communicating what we really feel or believe or our heart. We make these assumptions about what is happening in the relationship. So we may assume that they should know. So maybe you're upset with a person or they did something to offend you, and maybe you haven't really told them. You haven't used the language to tell them, and you think your body language, or you're not calling them, or you're withholding affection and attention from them, tells them exactly why you're upset with them. That's an assumption. We have to learn how to communicate with our words. And so making assumptions will absolutely hinder the way we communicate. So I invite you to begin to pay attention to the stories that are happening inside of your mind. And the way you can know it's a story is oftentimes we'll have something to happen, or we have an experience. And then a person will either do something, and then we'll build a whole message in our minds about why they did what they did, how they knew how she knows how I feel about that. They're probably doing this because, and we build these stories, and then we tend to connect with other people who also help to verify our story. And so now we begin to think it's real, when most likely we made a lot of it up. So when we make assumptions in relationships, instead of communicating and talking and asking the questions, why did you do that? Did you know that hurt me? I would really like to hear from you. Like, instead of just using our words, we build these stories, and I'm totally guilty of it myself. But because I'm aware, I choose not to listen to the stories anymore. So that's one thing we do that hinder our communications with other people. Ashley, I don't know if you're on or if you'll watch this, but you had asked that I speak to why are women so sensitive. I really think it's around this issue right here. It's around the issue of the assumptions that oftentimes we make in our mind about other people. And I will say this too, a thing that I've noticed in communicating with others, coaching, is we tend to see people, and even like, what's it, the book, The 7 Habits of Effective People. He says in that book, we do not see the world as we are, we see the world as it is, we see the world as we are. And so many times we assume that other people do things because of the way we do things. And that is a poor way to think, because no one's like you. So number 2, the reason we struggle with communication is that we're unclear of our own expectations. And I'm telling you, like this program, this 21-day journey program, I have really enjoyed watching people express, or because we start with, what are your expectations of a relationship? Some people really struggle with, they realize they don't know what they expect in a relationship. I will also account that to, many times we don't know our own standards, or we second guess our standards. So therefore, when you don't know what you expect, what your own standards are, and you haven't verbalized them to yourself, it becomes very difficult to communicate that. And in not being able to communicate it, what we do is we set ourselves up for continual hurt, pain, and disappointment. And maybe oftentimes what happens is we maybe not even know what it is we expect or what our standards are until someone offends or break our rule or our standard or our expectation. So this will become a problem in the communication level of the relationship, because some of our expectations are just they're too much for another human being, if we're honest. And I know that's hard for some people to believe, but they really are. Like sometimes we can have very unrealistic expectations. So number 3, fear. We are afraid to be vulnerable. So this really keeps us from communicating effectively. We are so afraid of a person really knowing what we feel and what we think, particularly when that thing is about our, what I call our soul wound. So soul wounds are our deep thoughts and beliefs about ourselves that have been created from maybe the hurt, pain, and disappointment of our past. Many times we have these wounds and we're not aware of them. And when you can learn to, 1, be consciously aware of what your soul wound is, then 2, be willing to acknowledge that you have this wound, and realize that it distorts your perspective and your perception of other people, then you can begin to challenge what your wound is saying and telling you. So if you guys go way back, or if you go on my YouTube channel, I have a whole teaching on soul wounds. And if it's something you all are interested in, if anyone watches this video, I can definitely teach about it again. But some soul wounds are like when you feel deeply abandoned, rejected, shame. Shame is a soul wound. What is another one? Can't think of them all right now. But many times what we do is, the reason the soul wound really affects the way we communicate is because either you're communicating from the wound, or you're hearing what another person says through your wound. And I think of the soul wound as like a filter, or dirty filter, that when anything good, loving, and pure comes through it, when you hear it from your wound. So let's say you believe that people always leave you, and that people will abandon you. That wound is always trying to keep you protected. And so when you're communicating through it, you may be communicating in a way that is, 1, either causing people to push away from you, or you're communicating to yourself in a way where you're telling yourself, I don't need anybody, I'm fine by myself. But that is your wound trying to keep you protected. Again, if that's something you want to know more about, go on my YouTube channel and check out the teaching on that, or in this group, if anyone watches this video, because it seems like right now no one is on, and it's okay. If anyone watches this video and is really curious about these soul wounds, it's one of my favorite teachings, because it really becomes a game changer when you understand and you can identify your soul wound, and you can choose to begin to work in the healing of it. So for me, healing sometimes is awareness. I believe that there are times when God will absolutely heal a person fully, physically, emotionally, spiritually, of a thing. But I've also noticed that there are, like with Paul, he said that, he had this affliction that wouldn't leave him. I think some of our emotional wounds are afflictions that we never get over, but we can learn how to be present and aware of them, and then learn not to make decisions from the soul wound. And as long as we continue to communicate from our soul wounds, we tend to push people away. We don't ever say what we mean. We usually have lots of regrets because we've said the thing that we didn't mean. And then later we're sad and sorry that we said it. And we think, oh, why did I say that? It's not, you didn't just say it just because. You said it because of the wound. And you got to start understanding and learning what your soul wound is so that you can stop making decisions from that wound. Number 4, this is one of the things I love to teach people about too, is, hey Sandra, one of the ways that we miss out or we hinder, like we stop, that really hinders the way we communicate is not understanding what it is we need. Like if you guys knew how many people that I talk to, particularly in relationships when I'm coaching them, and we begin to say, if they're having problems with their partner, and I ask them what do they need, that they can go into this long drawn communication about what he doesn't do, and the few men I've coached, what she doesn't do, but they never answer the question, what do you need? So we have these 6 basic emotional needs that drive everything we do. And when we're not clear of our need, then how can you communicate it? And so everything you're doing is trying to get the need met, but you're not communicating effectively the need to your partner, to your friends, to your coworkers, to your boss. So therefore it's creating this huge hurt between you all. And many times what we do is we just walk around with the hurt and be like, oh, it's okay, it doesn't matter. Or we cut people out of our lives, but we still don't heal that part where we know what it is we need so that we can communicate it. And so I'll share with you guys the needs. I won't go into a long detail about it because this teaching isn't about the needs. But when you learn your 6 basic emotional needs and you begin to learn the need that's driving you the most. So ideally out of the 6 needs, 2 are your drivers. And when you begin to understand what need is trying to get met inside of you, you can use your emotions to work for you instead of your emotions using you. And so these needs are the need to feel important. So that's the need of significance. The need to feel certain. So the need of safety. The need of variety or uncertainty. Some people like the very opposite. So those are the people who love adventure. Some people, the need for love and connection. I always like to share this with people. Like love and connection is very interesting because we definitely have a great need for love and connection, but people get it mixed up because there are times in relationships where you can feel loved, but you don't feel connected, or you can feel connection, but you know there's no love. And so it's important to understand your emotional needs from that place because I hear that a lot in relationships with parents, with my clients when they're talking about their relationship with their parent. And it usually sounds like this, like I know my parents loved me, they took care of me, they provided, but they didn't know me or they didn't see me. And that means there's a level of like connection or not belonging that happens. And so this begins to hinder the way we communicate with each other. One of the things also I've learned and noticed is in conversations with people, particularly people with teenage children, I have a lot of conversations with moms and they are really surprised that my children talk to me and they talk to me in lots of detail. Sometimes I'm surprised at the stuff they tell me. But I learned that the reason children stop talking to their parents, particularly in that teenage age, is because as parents, we're very busy at trying to kind of like guard our children from the mistakes that we made. And so our children don't feel heard, so they stop talking. So the moment they share something with you, you go into telling them what you would do and how you would do it and what happened when you were their age. They don't want to hear that. They just want to be heard. And so if you just listen, they feel connected and then they will open up more to you because their need for connection is being met when we just listen, not when we share our experience of something that was similar to theirs or when we tell them what we would do. So this is hindering communication between parents because the child is trying to get a need met, and maybe the parent is trying to get their need met of either the certainty that this kid is going to make the right decision by doing what you think they should do or doing what you tell them they should do. And so now these two needs are at war with one another because no one is listening and no one is hearing from the other person's need or hearing from understanding, which is the last thing, number 5. Number 5 is when we don't listen for understanding. And listen, like, these are things that I'm learning and I use, and it helps me. It's funny because I think I do it better sometimes as a mom than I do as a wife. But what's cool is that Andre knows this stuff too, so he calls me on it every freaking time. In the sense where he will notice that maybe I'm not listening to him from my heart. I might be listening from my pain, meaning I get very defensive. And he'll be like, whoa, what just happened? Like, why are you upset? Because that's not what I said. That's when we know we're listening from our wound, our soul wound, instead of listening from our heart. And the same thing with the kids. We kind of have that language. And so this, you know, guys, if you listen, thank you. And I did rush through this one. And I'll just go over the 5 again. The 5 things that hinder our communications. 1, that we make assumptions. There's the story in our head that we tell ourselves about other people that stops us from effectively communicating with them because we make up a story about what they're thinking or what they did or what they said or how they feel or how they made you feel, and they know they did that when maybe they don't. So that's an assumption. So it stops us from communicating. 2, when we're unclear about our own expectations, our own standards. And so therefore, if you're unclear, you can't communicate it, or your standards aren't realistic. So our expectations often hinder our communication. Number 3 was fear of being vulnerable. And that fear is because of our soul wounds. And the soul wound is that deep hurt that happened. You feel rejected. You feel abandoned. You're afraid that they're going to shame you. You know, you think that they're going to be there for you. So we have these emotional soul wounds. And when we are operating from the wound, we are in protective mode. And so therefore we're not communicating, or we're hearing through the wound. The wound hears hurt and pain. It goes into protection mode, and it keeps us from becoming vulnerable enough to talk about what it is we really want to say. And then number 4 is we're not clear about what it is we need. When we understand our emotional needs, we can begin to ask for what we need instead of demand expectations that often can't be met. So it's important to get to know what is it that you need emotionally, and then how do you know how to communicate that? And I'm telling you, it changes the conversation. So, and here's an example. So I used to say to Andre, you don't spend time with me. When I learned about the emotional needs, because he would be like, what? Like, that's defensive. What do you mean I don't spend time with you? I was just with you yesterday. We just went to the movie. Like, it creates a defense. But when I say I don't feel important to you, it doesn't feel like to me you're making time for me and that I don't feel like I'm important to you, that's speaking my need. I need to feel important to you. So then he doesn't have a defense to that. Andre high need is love and connection. So if he says to me, I don't feel like we're connecting, I don't need to be in defense about that. If the brother don't feel like we're connecting, why am I going to be like, well, you should feel like it? No, I need to hear, what can I do to make you feel connected? So when you can begin to speak from your needs, you change the conversation. You have more effective communication. And lastly, when we don't listen to understand, we listen to win an argument. Definitely guilty of that. But we have to learn how to begin to listen to the people in our lives, especially our children. We have to learn to listen to them for understanding and not to win and not to be right. Because when we do that, we hinder and we mess up the opportunity to really communicate with people that we love. So I hope this helps someone. I hope you watch. I hope you share. I hope you invite women into this room. And I hope that we all begin to heal together and build healthy, loving communities, families, and relationships. I am Kenesha Berry. Thanks for hanging out with me. Talk to you guys soon.